Hi, I'm Syncweaver, and I'm a Final Fantasy XIV player. By this time, I have redone, reshot, rewrote, and rethought how I was going to present my new player experience to the world in a fashion that wasn't going to upset the majority of fans in both the World of Warcraft fanbase and possibly the Final Fantasy fanbase. I quickly realized, however, that the fanbase I really had to look out for were the World of Warcraft fans that had a huge opinion on the game as it currently stands.
I can't stand the game. I can't stand the people who play it. I can't stand the content creators who are still simping for it because all of their money depends on it. So they stand around and pretend like they're not talking shit about other games to disguise the fact that they're terrified. Because it's the only way that they have to cope. I'm fucking sick of it, dude. I'm fucking sick of it. I'm fucking sick of the WoW community. I'm fucking sick of that shit company. I'm fucking sick of that shit game. I'm sick of putting so much of my time, energy, and love into that fucking universe to have it all crumble around me because perverted mid-30-year-old and 40-year-old men can't keep their fucking hands to themselves.
I wanted to be able to convey my feelings and at the same time not push too many boundaries so that my comment section doesn't end up a war zone like so many others who put out their opinions on the internet for the world to see like an open book idiot. And trust me, I know I'm an idiot when it comes to WoW for the most part, but I want to preface this again. I am a new player, and this is my new player experience. I may have not made it to endgame or obtained any good gear or had done any raids or the mini dungeons from Wrath of Legion. I also never joined any guilds, had the opportunity to craft much, or experience all of Shadowlands, but this is still a new player's experience and should be seen as someone getting into the game and not someone who has already beaten the game. With that being said, I plan to talk about my ventures through the story, as the narrative is very important to me in video games such as World of Warcraft. I'd expect the story itself would keep a hold on me, but what I found out while playing through Shadowlands and BFA was something I personally can compare to jumping in the middle of a new playing film, which is on its 5th sequel. I will be talking about the system and how I've been interacting with quests, events, and other gameplay mechanics that I, as a new player, have experienced thus far, though I can say that mostly everything functions as it should. I have seen a few graphical hiccups here and there, and honestly, as an old game, I get it. Last, I'll be talking about my overall view of World of Warcraft as a new player. I may come from Final Fantasy XIV as of this video, but if you remember from my last video, which you should go and watch, I have what might be an unhealthy amount of MMOs under my belt. I've played Fly for Fun, for fuck's sake. And remember, this is all from the viewpoint of a new player's experience. This does not mean I have to be at endgame or have played all the content in the expansion. I couldn't even if I wanted to anyway. This means that what I'm going through is not in-game experience or whole game experience, which I would count if I had played through all the content or made it to endgame. But we'll see if I have the push for endgame by the time I make it to the end of this video. So, how do I begin this scrapbook style story narrative as a new player? Well, let's talk about BFA. Functionally, BFA was supposed to be the expansion where everything would go back to zero. Essentially, it would be Alliance versus Horde once again, and that was what I was feeling during the cinematics, the NPC voice-acted scenarios, and the fact that every Alliance member is hard races to everything Horde. And trust me when I say that both sides aren't good if you play the other side. While on the Alliance side, which was the only experience I had while playing, the Horde seemed to have been coming up with plans at certain locations around these new sets of islands. The point of my character, who is called the Champion, which, okay. First off, what the hell happened between me freeing myself from the Lich King and being summoned to Anduin all of a sudden? Like 3 minutes ago I was being pelted by fruit in the street, the next thing I know I'm being called the Champion. The narrative around this confused me like no tomorrow. I actually had to ask outside help for a summary of what's going on in the story. BFA is after Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, Mist of Pandaria, Legion, and Warlords of Draenor. Death Knights, the class I decided to be, debuted in Wrath, making my character out to be either some sort of time traveler or perhaps I just time skipped anime style to the latest expansion. Also, for those of you who may be asking, what about Chromie? He doesn't work for me. More specifically, he doesn't allow new players to go back in time and experience the past expansions authentically. That means my escapades in the Outlands were for nothing. My exploration of the Legion areas will be for nothing, because as soon as I reach level 48, the game kicks me to the current expansion. And to put credence into my explanation here, I asked Bellular when he was doing his Q&A on stream. He actually clipped the entire segment if you want to take a look, and yes, that was my question. I asked, what is the new player experience like for WoW now? And he explained pretty much everything.
It's a pity that they throw you out of Chromie time once you hit level 50. I don't know if they ever removed that.
I believe that's completely in there, where it's just, oh, you're done, out you go.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not great if you're enjoying a zone and then you're like yoinked out before you finish the quest. So that is odd.
So no context, no lore, no character growth, if any, and no explanation as to why I'm now called the champion. And before you guys write the explanation down in the comments, know that telling me why I'm called the champion is not your job. It's the game's job. World of Warcraft's story, from my point of view, is very disconnected to me as a new player, and I think it's because it emphasizes on reaching endgame rather than going through a solid story, which is a damn shame. Imagine attending Hogwarts at year 6, or watching The Lord of the Rings on movie 3 an hour in. I'm so caught off guard about shit happening to me, I legit had a complaint in the first few minutes into BFA. That being, why the fuck was Jaina arrested? And better yet, why the hell was I arrested? Like, we're supposed to be ambassadors for Stormwind, and they just arrest our ass. Like, what the fuck, man? Oh, an even better question. Who the fuck is Jaina? The game doesn't explain anything about her to me. I get no synopsis, catch-up video, or even a glossary on who Jaina is. It just expects me to know. Anyway, I'm in jail, and for some reason, the guards were stupid enough to let us out. Well, they didn't, but it was way too easy because this Finn fellow who I actually like allowed us to escape. Murdering my way through the prison, Flynn and I organized a prison break and escape out the sewers. We then hitch a ride back to Cold Terrace, where I conveniently can just walk around without anyone caring, even though I would officially be a wanted fugitive, but okay. And before I go on with this, some of you may say I should be in Exile's Reach, for which I have to say, tell Blizzard that! When I started playing WoW, I chose to be a Draenei Paladin, a Worgen Death Knight, and a Night Elf Demon Hunter. None, I repeat, none of them start off in Exile's Reach for some reason. I don't know where the island is, I don't know how to get there, and I definitely don't know why I started out like this. But even if that's so, and I was supposed to start in Exile's Reach, why can't I just start in my given areas anyway? This has been a constant thing with WoW folk, and I get it, you're trying to help, but take a look at the screen and you tell me why I'm not in Exile's Reach. And look, the point is that I really don't need Tutorial Island at this point. All the starting areas were fine to play in, but I do get the concern. Exile's Reach has you on a boat going to an island looking for a lost crew, and it is here where you can gain a buttload of experience, but here's the thing, I do not care for experience, but I do care for the experience of playing the game. This means going through the story, and BFA, being the go-to expansion for new players, was quite the head scratcher. If you think about it, I started off in an expansion where it's Alliance versus Horde again, but where's the context as to why I'm supposed to hate the Horde if I'm on the Alliance side? No narrative means no context, meaning no interest from Sankweaver. And even so, while in Cold Terrace, I had learned that 3 houses were MIA, and apparently it's my job to figure out why? Okay, why? I do get the help in the form of one NPC that follows me to one of 3 locations, but it doesn't last too long before we meet other central characters. One has me going through the pirate camp, which was kind of cool, and related to a lot of the theme of Cold Terrace being a sea-dwelling sanctum. Another place had me dealing with witches and the occult, and let me just tell you, the story was way too long and it overstayed its welcome. I did find my first NPC glitch here, which didn't load in, but honestly, this was just so overbearing, so tiring, I got bored in this place, and we eventually found out who and why this all happened, but honestly, it took me out of the story. NPCs not loading in would start to become a constant at this point, so let that be a thing to remember. I also did my second dungeon here as well, a big monster-infested manor where all types of ghastly things reside. Kind of reminds me of HELLCATS Manor from Final Fantasy XIV, to be honest. The last place I visited had a lot to do with ships and them being built. However, it was here where I decided to pay for Shadowlands, and the game immediately told me to talk to some Bolvar guy. Now, I didn't want to overlevel and become level 60 before taking on Shadowlands, so I immediately started Shadowlands at that point of time. And I could have stayed and did all of BFA, but I had a feeling I wouldn't be too interested in it. The story was already throwing me off with these separate locations and their mysterious problems.
When this war began, I thought we were fighting for peace. But we're just fighting.
I would rather check out The Land of the Dead than taking hours on end with finishing a story I am not emotionally or mentally invested in. For an extra clear meaning, I was bored of the story of BFA. So onward to Shadowlands as a level 50 Death Knight. Now, Shadowlands does have an interesting story, but again, we're talking about characters I don't know being whisked away to the Land of the Dead without being killed or just having their souls going there by default or something. I mean, I don't know if the jailer needs them alive in the sense, but when in the Shadowlands, when you die, you become fuel for the Shadowlands. Yet another cycle of life and death that happens when you die. In another cycle of life and death. Yeah, I'm not sure about this story, Captain. So apparently, I am the only one who has the ability to escape them all via these first one relics that had me travel to a place called Oribos, a city with keepers who tend to some giant woman called the Arbiter. Her job is to send all souls to their final destination in the afterlife, a life after death where souls are supposed to live out a new immortal life. Some go to be Grand Guardians who shepherd souls in a place called the Bastion. Some get sent to a large violent battlefield to live out their immortal life for 5 more minutes in Maldraxxus. Some go to the center of nature as a seed or plant or a reborn soul in a place called Ardenweld. And some get sent to be punished in Revendreth, where souls are tortured until they are deemed sinless. Some are just dropped into hell, which is the Maw. There we meet the jailer who keeps our friends or important acquaintances. You know, I don't really know them so well, but they're locked up and tortured, Anduin especially. You do save them for about 30 minutes until you're told to leave them behind because the first one's technology only works for you, miraculously Deus Ex Machina style. That is how you get to Oribos and how you start your journey off to the different reaches of the Shadowlands by finding the firstborns and bringing them together to stop an anime shortage. Anima shortage. You know, I'd be in a crisis if I lost my anime too. What's Anima? Well, it's a new resource that's supposedly used to help get better gear, give reason for more players to keep up the grind, and it's also what keeps the Shadowlands going, because it's fuel. You see, the Arbiter distributes the soul to their final destination. When they get there, they exude anima, the very element that souls are made of. So when you die, you become fuel for the Shadowlands nonetheless, but at least you get to essentially live forever in a new reconstructed body. So you as the main character are out here looking for the firstborns in order to figure out how to awaken the Arbiter, while once again solving the problems that just so happen to pop up when you get there. Well, at least the excuse is anima shortage, but I still don't know how anima works and how it energizes all of Shadowlands. Kind of perplexes me. I always thought the Land of the Dead in any genre was something very delicate for storytelling. Death is supposed to be the end, but of course there has to be an afterlife, which is fine if you establish rules that make the setting narratively easy to connect with the current universe. You just teleport there, for goodness sake. You're told about it by Bolvar and given very little information about it. You run around the mall like you own the place as soon as you get there, and almost immediately find Jaina and Thrall having a moment as you decimate your enemies into oblivion. And this wouldn't bother me so much if it wasn't for the fact that you solve so many problems so fast narratively that I honestly think that your character might just be some sort of god. But I will admit one thing, the story for World of Warcraft Shadowlands is okay. Not so exciting for me when I have no context for anything, as Blizzard expects me to beat the main story so I can use Chromie and go back in time so to relive past expansions whose stories have already been retconned in some way. Like how Kil'jaeden found the Helm of Domination only for it to have been planted there by the jailer or something. So Kil'jaeden finds the helm and uses it to make the Lich King, who would go around killing people, thereby sending their souls to the Shadowlands and fuel the jailer. But then you got Sylvanas coming out of nowhere with Deus Ex Machina powers, kicking this guy's ass, who's supposedly comparable to the Lich King. You also have this whole Lich King thing that was supposedly Kil'jaeden's idea for world conquest and how he's connected to the true enemy of Azeroth, Sargeras, until Shadowlands happened and the sword is still stuck in Azeroth's butt crack, and we're just gonna ignore this thing sticking out of her butt. Like, we're just gonna ignore this. Okay, like, BFA had almost nothing to do with Azeroth as the Titan Spirit who should be awakening or something, but no. We're chasing this guy named Zavol across the Shadowlands only to lose and eventually have Sylvanas be like, I serve no one. You've been serving the Elf Army, Arthas, the Horde, and now the Jailer for a few years now, and here, right now, you'll say you serve no one? What the fuck do you think he saw in you this whole entire time? A partner? Fuck no! He ordered your ass around like a hooker at a bachelor party.
This is a shakedown.
Mr. Blizzard, this isn't going to work.
Yeah,
Blizzard.
you and 5 of those
Plot holes.
get out.
Sylvanas is the biggest confusion for me in this entire continuity. She was an elf general who Arthas turned into a banshee. She then freed herself only to use the Horde for some sinister death plot because of the Jailer. Like, she is so unlikable to me, it's not even funny. And what's more, I still have no idea what's going on in WoW. I have no idea. Like, I get what's up in Shadowlands, and barely for BFA, but I still don't know who any of the main cast are. I still have no idea why the Arbiter broke down, and where the fuck is Illidan? He's like the only character I know because of YouTube.
You are not prepared.
You're right, Illidan. I was not prepared. And now my head hurts. Listen, let's just move on. So I've heard the systems in World of Warcraft were pretty average. So average, in fact, that programs from third parties developed these things called add-ons. And to be honest, they work pretty well. As you can see, I have a more organized UI, but I'm just not feeling okay with all this. You see, when you play Final Fantasy XIV, you are not allowed to use third-party programs, not even ones that act essentially like calculators. WoW is on the other end, embracing the add-on culture almost to a giant slightly slanted T. You have so many add-ons for so many things that even some raiders won't allow you to raid unless you have a certain add-on to help get through the harder raids. To be honest, the add-on thing isn't so offensive to me, but some add-ons like this one that shows you how to beat a boss can feel somewhat spoiling. In Final Fantasy XIV, every raid can be done by sheer grit, will, reflex, and memory. World of Warcraft's raids seem to have RNG in the mix, which can delete a raid in 3 seconds, and I'm not sure I want to be a part of that. Like, take this add-on for instance. This is supposed to be an add-on for changing your UI to look like Final Fantasy XIV's UI. Can't get it to work, but things like this is okay for me. Programs like DBM, if I said that right, seem to take the fun out of figuring out a boss in an MMO. Take for example Final Fantasy XIV. I memorized everything he did to the point I was the call-out guy, and I loved the fight very much. It was fun figuring out how to beat him after a few raid parties. But when I see raids using DBM because of the many stupid RNG mechanics, I don't blame the player, I wholeheartedly blame the game. I heard the one who was leading WoW was a raid designer, but having RNG and bosses that can never be told as to what will happen doesn't seem quite right to me, and I know it's not in every single boss in every single raid, I know it's only in a few, but I'm just saying if there's RNG in any kind of boss and you need a program to deal with it, well, it just doesn't feel right for me. In 14, you have body language, and following said body language can help you dodge attacks that have no telegraphs. It's quite fun, but I will respect the people who made the add-on for the purpose of the whole RNG thing, or because it can just be a bit frustrating. Another issue I kept running into was the sheer amount of mobs that would be in your way for almost every quest you go on. Sometimes I want to leave. I don't have flying, and enemies seem to lock onto your character where you might just want to go and slow you down when they hit you. And to be honest, I wouldn't complain about this at all if it wasn't for the fact that almost every quest you go on, you need to go through mobs for whatever reason, and their lock-on and their range is unbelievably far. And it doesn't even matter what quest you're on. You could be finding somebody, you could be trying to locate an item, it doesn't matter. There's always a mob there to stop you and get in your way. Again, I wish WoW had a line of sight system so you could just sneak behind a mob without triggering them. Like, even from behind, they just know, hey, I'll just slip behind you, buddy. And no, Some mobs have eagle vision and can climb wall faces like it ain't no thing, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Line of sight these mofos please. What's interesting is how things are virtually the same if expansions mean anything in terms of quest activity. You talk to NPC, you accept quests from NPC who now have an immersion window due to the immersion mod. You kill things, find things, click things, rinse and repeat. It's just about the same as the last expansion on what you do, but to be fair, all MMOs suffer from this stagnation. Final Fantasy XIV also suffers from quests being stagnant. The same kill monster quest, find items, find NPC, go to location, and blah blah blah. The only difference is the story significance it has in the area. Sometimes doing side quests can change the NPC and location layout as though you actually did something in the area. WoW on the other hand doesn't have that for their side quests, but for the main story quests only. Side quests have you interacting in the area mostly through mobs and interactable quest specific items that disappear once clicked. Most of them respawn for other players to complete their quest, but that's par for the course. The quests feel kinda similar to BFA, but it's not really a bother to me. I just wish the side quests were more important to the surrounding area, but maybe I'm not looking in the right place, or I'm looking far too into quest functionality. Well, it's not all that important compared to the game's inner system itself. When you have a special event happening in a location, you usually see some loading by the NPCs. They may actually disappear right in front of you, and I'm always caught off guard by that. Perhaps it means to load the event from further away so the player doesn't notice. It would help keep the immersion while playing the game because so far that kind of programming is evidence of some early MMO lazy developing. Another odd thing is how you can just walk right into a dungeon without a word or warning. Dungeons in World of Warcraft are not to be done alone. Now, since the level crunch and all, but far too often do I find myself walking to a dungeon and then whoops, I'm dead. 14 pretty much forces you to use a party finder through something called a duty roulette. It's very similar to Dungeon Finder, so I know the concept, but why can players walk into dungeons like that? I just don't know. Perhaps a relic of the past where people would form parties outside the dungeon? I really don't know. The Dungeon Finder is a great way to queue up for parties going through whatever expansion you set yourself on. Debuted in Wrath, the Dungeon Finder allows for a player to choose random or specific dungeons they wish to play in. You are randomly set with 4 other people in a party and you go inside a dungeon that is within your level. The problem here is that I only had access to Shadowlands and BFA, and I'm not really too sure why I can't go into past dungeons. Here I'm showing it on the screen right now just to show proof. 14 had you unlock dungeons so that you were proper level when going through the duty finder. WoW just lets you go in even if the story wasn't caught up to it, meaning I can go into a dungeon that was supposed to be done in the future due to story, and here I'm wondering why they would allow that. I only have to be the right level in order to get into the dungeon. Story does not really matter in this case. Perhaps to get me to max level faster I wasn't too sure, but what I can say is that since you have a dungeon finder, why have open entrances to dungeons in the first place? This seems like either lazy design or perhaps there was a point to it, and if there is, please tell me, because far too many times have I just waltzed right into a dungeon without knowing it was a dungeon and getting my ass handed to me on a platter with a side of salt. Again, I think it's to form a party outside. I just don't know why they have the dungeon open. It's far too powerful for any single person to go through, especially Legion and up. Leveling. So, leveling is easy. It's way too easy. It's so easy that I literally made it to level 50 in a matter of a few days of playing WoW. And I was in BFA the whole time. And not only that, I wasn't even halfway finished the expansion from what I was told. This makes me feel like leveling wasn't even meant to have been an experience for new players coming to WoW. Like when I was little and I heard about WoW and how reaching max level was an achievement for so many people because the leveling process was actually an experience, I was hoping to feel the same thing via the story, like leveling with the story along the way. But no, leveling with the story is if you ignore the side quests and focus on the main quest the whole entire time. And even if you follow the story, you will still over level. I hardly touched the side quests in Shadowlands, only doing them when I reached a wall on my journey when I couldn't find a quest to do. And even there, I had no idea how to advance the story until someone showed me that the map of all things was how I figured out what level I was supposed to be for the next story quest. And to be honest, I was fine being at that wall because because at that time, I could actually do a side quest or two and experience something. Now, that's not so bad, but I hate not seeing a purpose for the side quests. In Final Fantasy XIV After a Realm Reborn, side quests became a great way to gain experience for almost soloing the story. The experience you gained was enough to advance the plot and have almost no wall to hit. Dungeons were story relevant, and side quests even had story significance. You'd learn more about your surrounding area, its history, the NPC, and why they are here, and even hidden lore about people and places, whereas WoW, you get almost none of that. It's mostly an NPC trying to do something, and you need to help them out by either doing the simplest of tasks or juggernaut level impossible tasks, narratively speaking, that they somehow know that you can do, like killing 30 mobs and steal their souls, or infiltrate the main base of their enemy, or find something important and kill the leader while you're doing this, especially after they said the leader was super dangerous. Hi, Syncweaver from the future, and after going over this entire video that is almost an hour long, I have found that I need to correct myself at this point of time. To elaborate what I mean about the side quest and how it's not correlating with the story, I'm going to admit and say that I am wrong. What I felt with the whole entire side quest is that it just felt kind of disconnected throughout the entirety of BFA and Shadowlands, but that's not true. The main story quest is fine, they are directly connected to the story, whereas the side quest felt like they weren't so connected, but they actually are. They're all connected. Every single side quest, either BFA, Legion, doesn't matter, Shadowlands, it doesn't matter. They're all connected. What I was feeling was a sort of rush, and I felt as though that the side quests didn't mean too much of anything. They didn't correlate with the story, and that was a lot in BFA, but they were correlating to the story. It just, veered off a little bit. It just didn't connect right away. Just didn't feel like everything was, narratively speaking, all put together correctly. So I do apologize for that. I didn't mean to say that the side quests weren't connected to the story. I just meant that they felt disconnected and diffused in some form or fashion. It just felt that way. They're all connected. They're all there. I just felt a little rushed and disconnected from the story at that time, so I do apologize for that. I will say, however, if I'm going to add on to this, when I talked about the mechanics and the systems, I mainly wanted to talk about the core and how everything functioned as a game in terms of WoW, moving your character, teleporting, all that other good stuff. I do talk about the systems, but I'm not far enough to know about the whole in-game systems, like artifacts or corruptions or whatever that you have to collect. I'm not there. I never got to that point. So that's more context for that. So I do apologize for that too. Sorry about all this. Let's get back to the video. Well, the rewards are usually pretty useful for keeping up with the story, but sometimes I feel a bit overpowered in some cases, almost like the game wants to hurry me up to the end and enjoy its award-winning raids and in-game dungeons. And in that case, I don't like how rushed I feel, but I do love the rewards in the sense of speed I feel while I'm progressing through the quests. I feel as though that the story was kind of an afterthought to them. Now, from the way I've been nitpicky, you could assume that I dislike the mechanics in WoW, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. In fact, I think the mechanics hold up even after so many years of service. I've said before that I've felt rushed being pushed to the end where the actual game is being played. I can find reasons as to why people would prefer to make it to max level faster when playing an MMO. This is because of people who really don't care for the story. And unfortunately, that's not me. I've met plenty who thought the Final Fantasy XIV story was not interesting and has in many cases made the choice to boost to a higher level. And that's fine if that's your prerogative, but as a warning to those who wish to rush to endgame, you will have a much tougher time trying to figure out how the usual game mechanics work. And it is this right here where I can compare how I had no idea what the heck I was doing in any dungeon WoW threw me into for the first time in Shadowlands. Boosting to 50 may not yield much of a difficulty, but 60 and 70 is another thing when it comes to 14. And this is how I felt the whole entire time. However, this may not apply to everyone, and so I leave only a warning to those who want to boost, whether you are in WoW or Final Fantasy. As for me, I think mechanically, WoW as an MMO is showing its age, but it still holds up. So I've said before that the combat felt snappy and more responsive compared to Final Fantasy. I'm not thinking that the combat is much better than I thought, but it's still aligned with what I said before. Not saying that either is bad. It'd be like judging toasters that both did the job and got it done, but one was exactly 1 second faster than the other, and the exact result was the same for the second toaster. It doesn't matter which toaster I use as long as I get my waffle. I need it for chicken. The combat feels good, just as 14 felt good too. I would say other games does combat much better, but For top-of-the-line MMOs like these, I felt that WoW was fast in pace, which gave a feeling of snappy action. Final Fantasy XIV isn't as fast in terms of GCDs, but people soon realized that when you reach level 70, you're now using a kit that requires the use of off globals in between standard globals. This is also present in WoW, but I feel it's not as prevalent in there as it is in 14. Where 14 has you doing one off global as a usual thing, skill players are often using what is called double weaving. That's when you use two off globals between your standard global. This is a very usual thing when it comes to the raiding scene. Hell, some even do triple weaving, but I think you would require skill speed or spell speed to pull that off. For example, I play as Frost Death Knight and had used Blood and Unholy while trying to figure out the difference between the three. Blood is a tank spec and uses some defensive abilities to maintain itself in battle. Frost uses ice magic to deal damage in all types of ways, usually very heavily, and Unholy is the pet type, summoning minions to deal heavy off damage and using other abilities to power up and summon more minions while dealing dots and direct damage. Basically, this game's summoner. Now, the combat in World of Warcraft feels very good, and I will admit that. The animation doesn't blind me when I hit a button, so I will give WoW its credit for having solid combat. Yeah, nothing bad to say here at all. I will have to say this again, but I did not make it to endgame, so I have no PvP experience. I have observed PvP with other WoW content creators, but when I look at it, I will have to say that it just does not seem to fit me. I'm just not that kind of person to be into PvP when it comes to MMOs. Not a real miss if all I want is the experience of playing WoW, but maybe someday I'll give it a try. I'd say I should try it very soon since PvP is a big thing in WoW, along with raiding. So, for the WoW vets out there, I will now shill my Discord so that you can see the opinion of one WoW vet who told me everything wrong in Shadowlands as it stands right now. This person had been playing World of Warcraft for a while and made it to endgame, so if you want to check it out, come to my Discord so you can all agree how WoW is becoming the worst thing ever. Also, please try to keep it civil in there. We're all about the chill times in my Discord, so try to keep y'all ignorant sides in check if you don't mind. Overall though, WoW is 17 years old now, so I can't expect it to be smooth like butter as told by Chop Chop Master Onion all the time.
Move like butter. Move like butter. Caress your lover.
And again, I have to remind you that this is coming from a new player's point of view, not from in-game, so I have to really emphasize this. I've learned that add-ons is not something to evade or fear, but to embrace. Because the community in the game itself embraces add-ons, I felt that not looking into it would have been a waste. Though I do still prefer going vanilla when it comes to the game's standard functions, I will try to see if I can find more things to make playing WoW even more fun. I've also learned that World of Warcraft is just old. Honestly, they may want to start thinking about making a sequel to World of Warcraft. No offense, it's a fun game, well, for me that is, since I'm still in the honeymoon phase, but a game with an engine that is getting up there in years right now may want to start seeing a successor. So, as a new player, I am not offended by the mechanics or the system. And again, if you want to talk to a WoW vet in my Discord, or the WoW vet in my Discord, you can, once again, join it. And you can talk to them, as this guy really did leave a wall of text explaining why Shadowlands just did not work. So this last section has been rewritten over and over again. It was totally different before the lawsuit between Active Blizz and the state of California in the United States came to light. In the last section, I was essentially in the honeymoon phase of WoW, and I left it at that because I wanted you to have my genuine feelings on the game from the perspective of a new player. The only thing I really did not like was the story's disconnecting plots. For a long time now, I thought the negativity surrounding World of Warcraft was probably because the dev team most likely was not motivated to make a good game, but to make a game that would try to keep players playing and sometimes push them into spending more money, basically wasting their time while penny pinching them. I had the notion that perhaps the devs were tired and have been doing this for way too long, and that the new player experience should blend in with the in-game experience so everyone was in the same pot. I had thought that the WoW refugees were just playing 14 as a means of rebellion against the company, time off away from the game, wanting to experience something new while spouting their disgust they accumulated over time with WoW, a way to deflate while waiting for new content to come out. Content that took 8 months to come out, and from what I've heard, a regular thing coming from Blizzard, as long dry periods for content is not something new for WoW players. I had thought that the dev team really wanted to make something great, that someone higher was holding them back, because business is business when it comes to companies, but the truth is a lot worse than I thought. I had found out that Blizzard was no longer the game company it once was. Instead, it has become a company that makes games. From what I heard, some of the developers in the team didn't even seem like they were inspired to make a game to break the mold of MMOs. They felt as though they were making a status quo game, something that a 9-to-5 worker would make so they could get the paycheck at the end of the week. Some of the leaders at Blizzard don't even seem like they want to understand how the game was good in the past, and do not, or perhaps refuse to address any of the game's real issues, thinking that because it's WoW, that it'll always be okay and it will never fail. I felt, as a new player, that it catered to people who are new, like me, but without the grand knowledge of how MMOs are supposed to work. I've been playing MMOs for years, and for it to have Exile's Reach to teach what seems to be baby's first MMO is outright insulting to me. Like, I get why Exile's Reach exists, and I appreciate it being here, but so many people thought I needed it for either game function know-how, which the game did an okay job teaching me before, or the butt-chunkus amount of experience that I could have obtained anywhere. Again, I'm in no rush to make it an endgame, and so many people have told me that that's where the game actually begins, which is a damn shame, because I want to experience the history of World of Warcraft. I want to know its backstory. I want to know who are these people I'm fighting with and trying to save. I want to know what the world is like and why it ended up this way. I want to know about Azeroth and its creatures. I want to know about Jaina, Anduin, Thrall, Bane, Garrosh, and Illidan. I want to take my time with the story and level in a brisk pace. I want to see all the areas from the past expansions because it feels like it wants me to forget those. I want to know about the inner workings of the lore, the universe, and why my character exists. I just want to know the story. The best part about playing a fresh MMO is the discovery of all these different types of things. How to fight, how to craft, seeing the sights, and experiencing the story. For me, the story is the most important thing. I'm not here for just the raids and PvP content. I'm here to find out why Sylvanas is working with the jailer, why do the first one's relics only work for me, and why I'm supposed to be so important if every other character overshadows me in importance, especially since they were the ones kidnapped into the Shadowlands. But most of all, I'm playing World of Warcraft to see why so many players were leaving and what it was like for many of the refugees to play World of Warcraft in modern times. I'm not here to obtain the same feeling they got the first time they played WoW 10 or 15 years ago, because that will never happen. I'm also not here to make Final Fantasy XIV look so much better in comparison. 14 has its issues, a ton in fact. Even the new player experience could be better in 14, and in a way it kind of has. Like how the main scenario quest for A Realm Reborn yields more experience, and gear is easily obtained while you go through your journey to level 50. 14's new player experience for me was slow since I came from 1.0. I came from a 14 that had no expansion, no A Realm Reborn, and no clue as to why 11 was so popular. I say this because 14 1.0 took a lot from 11, and I know a lot of people play Final Fantasy 11. Just bringing that into modern times didn't cut it. I wanted to know WoW a bit better, and unfortunately, I did. I found the game real fun and enjoyed my time, but as a veteran MMO player, I easily saw the cracks it was trying to hide, and to be honest, if the narrative was much better connected without the obvious plot holes, I would be saying that WoW lives up to its legendary status. If I didn't learn about the system and how it's trying to keep new and elite players from leaving with its amazing raids and epic story, I would be saying that WoW is a pretty solid journey, but I can't. WoW suffers from trying to keep an agenda going for all players, retention, with the top 5% and bottom 5% being the only ones really enjoying what's going on here. I can say I understand why so many have left, and after hearing the stories as to how WoW is treating players within the game, being disrespectful to their time and treating people like numbers. The only reason why I never saw or felt any of this was because I was having too much fun with their smoke screens and illusions, but the wonder eventually fizzled out, and I soon found myself skipping story for progression and rushing to the next voice cutscene with badly animated models. And that was only the WoW experience, my new player experience. As for the lawsuit that's underway, I can only speak of this in my own real voice. The last thing I want to talk about is Activision Blizzard and World of Warcraft itself, but here in the present time. What you heard throughout the video was me being very positive in the past about World of Warcraft. I wanted to keep that script in tow. I wanted to keep that because I wanted you to feel how I felt while playing the game in a new player's experience. Overall, I can sum it up as I like the new player experience in World of Warcraft. I just hate the fact that the lore and the story feels so diffused. I'm confused. I have no idea who these people are, where this location is, what the hell I'm doing. I feel lost in the game, and I think they try to really bank on the mechanics of the game. I don't know why they are trying to bank on the mechanics of the game. That is not what I feel an MMO should be entirely about. I don't think that the end game should be about just going into the raid and saying, you know, a whole bunch of people say that the actual beginning of the game is when you reach the end, and I hate that. I don't like that. Honestly, it kind of pushes me back a bit, and I honestly think if I could have gone through the rest of the game and reached endgame, I probably would feel how other WoW vets feel and why they're here. The negativity that they got was unfounded. Just because they're from World of Warcraft doesn't mean that they deserve to have their game bashed or them bashed. I felt as though that I myself, as a player of the game who has played since the very beginning, should know more about my World of Warcraft brethren, my WoW refugees. You know, I went in, I looked at WoW, I played WoW, I invested time in WoW. I got to know the lore, I got to know the people, the mechanics, the systems. People told me stories. They left walls of short stories for me, and it's not just that one, but there are plenty of people who told me why they played WoW for over a decade, only to be betrayed, or felt betrayed, you know, or felt like that their time isn't being respected, or the systems that they constantly ask for them to change for only to be ignored. It sucked. I felt as though that I had a positive experience in the game, but I very, very, very quickly saw what was going on, and with all the people telling me what was happening at endgame and what would happen when I reach endgame, I was not looking forward to it. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't looking forward to it. I don't hate World of Warcraft. In fact, if you want to play it, play the game. By all means, more power to you. And if you don't like 14, then that's fine. I'm not here to evangelize Final Fantasy 14. I'm not here for that. I'm also not here to feel the glory days of World of Warcraft. That's impossible. I just wanted to know why people were leaving a legendary game that is World of Warcraft and going in and having that perspective. That would make a lot of sense, and not just sit there and rag on it, or saying that these people from World of Warcraft, they suck, or say that WoW sucks without playing the game ever. And that was a good small little portion of the negativity that was coming from Final Fantasy 14 in our community, and that sucks. That's why I did it. I wanted to know. I wanted to pay like my respects to the people that were coming from the game. I honestly wanted to know. Like, so many people were leaving World of Warcraft, it didn't make any sense. There was a video left and right, and I wanted to go in and find out why and how and what's going on, you know? I really am disappointed in Activision Blizzard for what's going on right now, especially with the lawsuit. Honestly, I can't really talk about it so much because it just bums me out. But honestly, if it wasn't for that, I would be still playing World of Warcraft. It's my decision, my morality, to not spend on that subscription. It is my choice, so nobody else has to. But when I look at the articles, when I look at the lawsuit, when I look at all this, it just makes me feel sad, and I can't for the life of me keep spending money at a company that does that. So I'm making the choice not to play World of Warcraft till further notice. And when they get their act together, or maybe when they make a a WoW 2, or when they really do like start what's the word, pruning pruning the problems out of the company, and then we see actual significant change, then maybe I'll come back. But that's it for me. I'm getting hot right now. I need to turn on my air conditioner. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't, please sub to the channel. Though I am not a WoW content creator, I do a lot of lore content for Final Fantasy XIV. And if you want to go and check the backlogs on that, go right ahead. I think I've made a couple playlists. I will continue to I'll continue to make my lore content after this video. I want to get back into that since Endwalker's coming out, and I'm also streaming right now. At this present time, I'm trying to get Necromancer on my character, and the only way you can do that is going through 200 floors in a place called the Palace of the Dead, and it's kind of like a more solid Torghast. You'll see what I mean when you watch the stream. Just make sure you watch the stream. I'm here on YouTube, not really on Twitch all that much, but if I get a lot more people on Twitch, I'll switch over to Twitch when that happens. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Hope I get your support, and I'll see you guys later. Stay vigilant out there, and good night.